Hey guys, what's going on? Tyrauku here, and back again with another Hurndig video. So I think I've done two on him so far, and in both of those videos, I had him built pretty slow, very high damage, and he was unbooked. Now, I tried to do a video on him last night, comparing him. This was my goal the entire time, was to do a live video with him unbooked, and then book him out and show you guys his potential difference, and kind of give my opinions on whether or not I think he's super impacted with the books and whether or not you should invest your books, especially because legendary books are so hard to come by in the game. Unfortunately, after spending 30 minutes or so doing the video, I went back to edit it and I'm like, this video is just not that good. It was too complicated. And I want to give you guys the concise enough information while still showing you the differences that it makes sense. Okay, so it's kind of all just jumbled up. So I want to go ahead and jump in here. I want to show you the build that's probably more realistic for most people, and give you my opinions on the two different builds, whether it's the slow build or the fast build. I think those are the two main builds that at least I'm seeing right now. Also, I talked to my dad a few days ago on the phone, and he told me that he was possibly going to use Hurndig as a nightmare campaign farmer. So, Dad, if you're watching this video, this is the build that I would use if I was you on your account. So, my masteries for Hurndig currently are going to be still with the slow type build for the arena specifically. So this is not exactly what I would run if I was going to run the gear and the style that I have in right now. I'll go over this style and where I think this is going to be the best for, but these masteries that I've built over here are probably more like the ones I would run. Now, flawless execution, you can do this one of two ways. You can run this or Helm Smasher. Helm Smasher does more damage, but flawless execution allows you to be more consistent. So I'm thinking this will probably be the best case scenario for most people. And the reason why I picked these masteries specifically, I've picked this one, the single out, over Ruthless Ambush. Ruthless Ambush gives you a bigger damage boost, but actually they're the same, but in Nightmare Campaign, you're probably going to be getting 2 hits anyways, so this is going to help out. These are the masteries, not necessarily like set in stone, the perfect ones, but this is probably something like I would actually run. Blood Shield, a little extra survivability. This actually helps out quite a bit with the extra cycling through stuff. Now, this could definitely be swapped out for anything else, but you guys can pick and choose. This, I think, is a pretty solid mastery setup and probably what I would use if I was going to build them like this. So this build specifically, I think is going to be more conducive, I guess, better for faction wars, dungeons, Doom Tower, arenas with a speed-tuned team. So like you have a speed booster, a debuffer, Hurndig goes. That's good. That's the kind of team that he would fit in with this, where you're focusing on attack, getting this very high, focusing on speed. Now, for Nightmare Campaign farming, I think you want about 206 speed if you want to go twice for the Kymars at the very last wave. 206, 207, somewhere around there, I think is a pretty good speed. Now, he is 205, but if you do run the Whirlwind of Death Mastery, then you can go with a little less speed, but you still want to be over 100, because I believe the first wave of Nightmare Campaign, which when we're doing this, we're going to do a Nightmare 12-6. These Lord Shazars, 101 speed. So I believe there's a Lord Shazar in the first wave. So if you're not 202 speed, at least, you're not going to go twice before he goes. So you definitely want to make sure you go at least 2 times before the enemy takes a turn. That's going to give you the best chance of actually making it through. Now, you don't have to build him with lifesteal gear necessarily, but you'll notice that I don't have him in Savage Gear. Savage Gear makes the gearing requirements even less. I'll show you guys my builds and his stats a little bit more, but lifesteal will make it more consistent. You're going to be healing up after each one of these hits. The Blood Shield also is going to make it more consistent, but where he's at right now, I think is a pretty achievable build for most people doing or considering doing Nightmare Campaign. So the only set he has is a Cruel set, and then his stats, 46-27, 205 speed, crit rate, obviously very important. Sometimes I build my champions a little less, and to be honest, in the campaign, you could go a little bit less, especially if you're wearing lifesteal gear. You don't have to worry about dying as much, but I would definitely try to go for 100% crit rate, but it's not the end of the world. If you get 97%, you'll hit it most of the time, right? The crit damage, 225, this is doing pretty good. Now, the accuracy, if you're just using it for campaign farming, the accuracy is perfectly fine. Now, accuracy actually does matter for him quite a bit, but if you're doing this, you'll see the resistance on these champions is only 30. So you'll land the debuffs basically all the time. So if you're going to use them in things like the dungeons, things like Doom Tower, Faction Wars, I would definitely push him to more like 200 accuracy at least to make sure he's landing those debuffs more frequently. The debuffs I'm talking about are from his A2 ability and his A3. The weaken, the possibility of HP burn, the decreased turn meter from his A3. You guys can jump in here and read these more if you want, but like I said, I've already done 2 other videos on Hurndig, so I kind of want to make this just a summary and my opinions after fully booking him. This A2 ability, this is very, very much worth the books. So, attacks all enemies, 75% chance of placing a decreased defense, and a 50% decreased accuracy debuff for 2 turns. The decreased accuracy definitely has some unique uses in a lot of areas in the game. This A2 ability hits very hard. The decreased defense is amazing. We all know that. But 75% chance, it feels like it doesn't land more often than not when you, 75% chance should land pretty frequently, but you definitely feel it when it's not applied. So getting him booked out on this ability, now you can't target the books, of course, but this takes it from a 75% chance to a 100% chance. The damage boost is nice as well, but this cooldown reduction is incredible. So it reduces it down to a 3-turn cooldown versus a 4-turn cooldown. This is putting him on the same level as War Maiden, which is a very, very solid and consistent decreased defense champion, but he hits way harder. So Hurndig can hit like an absolute truck, where War Maiden doesn't really bring much else other than the decreased defense. Granted, she is a rare, he is a legendary, obvious differences there, but she is one of the best rares especially when it comes to the decreased defense stuff. So getting that book down definitely allows him to cycle through everything. If you're running the Mastery that also has a chance of increasing the duration of debuffs, that has a chance of being extended. So basically, you could keep decreased defense up all the time, making him a very vital and usable champion in dungeons, faction wars, Doom Tower, and everything else. Now, his A3 ability, when it comes to his books, this is very, very much worth it, in my opinion, because it goes from a 6-turn cooldown down to a 4-turn cooldown. Now, this is even more beneficial in the fact that his A1 ability, whenever it kills an enemy, it'll reduce the cooldown of this ability by 2 turns, which means if you go ahead and use this ability, so you use his A3 on the Nightmare campaign, for example. Let's go ahead, I'll give you guys an example of how this looks in real time when he's booked. Now, if he was not booked, it wouldn't look exactly like this, unfortunately. So, obviously, if you keep killing people, you'll get the cooldown off and you can use the A3 again, but this goes very smoothly. So I got to turn it off auto, and it won't work like this in the campaign on auto because he uses his A2 all the time. But in dungeons, it'll probably end up working like this because this will be taking off cooldown quite a bit. So he uses A3 right here, then we get a turn, okay? After these people take their turns. So he uses A1 now. So this is the first turn, like if it was in dungeons or whatever. This is his first turn. We use the A1, kill this person, hopefully. And then boom, look, this is already off cooldown. So that is perfect. So he hits the person, reduces the cooldown once because it's coming back around to that A3 ability, and then 2 turns reduced because of that A1 ability. Now, when it comes to the campaign, that may not have a huge benefit just because of the fact that he's probably going to one-shot most of these waves, right? Well, just kidding. So it definitely does have a big benefit because had he used the A3 just now, he would have killed both these people for sure. So getting this ability booked down to 4-turn cooldown is definitely noticeable, and it feels very good. Now, why did I end that just now? Because these people do need levels. That was kind of pointless. I wasted kind of energy there, but no big deal. We're just going to showcase Hurndig some more. So with that said, do I think he's worth the books? And I've been playing with him for the past a little bit over a week. Well, about a week now, I'd say, since my first video, basically, with no books whatsoever versus with books. If you're using him just as a damage champion, which if you're doing that, I don't think you're getting the full benefit of him unless you're using him in the arena. Now, me using him in the arena is not a huge deal, these not being fully booked, except for the fact that if I'm not one-shotting the enemy, this definitely is noticeable, not having these 2 abilities books reduce the cooldowns of them, because when it comes back to his turn, it feels very, very slow. Whereas if these were fully booked, he'd be cycling through things a lot quicker, and it would just feel better overall. So as a champion, is he worth the books? If you're using him in dungeons, faction wars, Doom Tower, campaign farming, this ability actually helps out a lot when it comes to campaign farming because of the decreased defense. I would 100% say he is worth the books. Now, if you're going to book him and you're very, very tight on books, if you get lucky and go into the A2 and A3, I'd probably just stop there. This damage boost on his A1 is beneficial. This is a pretty good chunk of damage boosted up on him, but legendary books are hard to come by, right? Of course they are. And there's a lot of champions who require much, much fewer books. He requires 15 if you fully book him, I believe. But like Scylla the Drakes, I would rather invest the books into her and hopefully land this ability versus fully booking Hurndig for his A1. But if books aren't a problem for you, go ahead and fully book him. I think he's one champion who you'll definitely use a lot in the game. Now, let's talk about his build that I have going right now a little bit more. So you've seen his masteries. I kind of talked about the slow build of him versus the fast build. Now, when you're doing this, the reason why I'm saying there's two different builds is because of his skills and his passive specifically. It fills his champion's turn meter by 10% every time they are hit, occurs once per hit. Now, before I thought like against a Lord Shazar who hits 3 times on his A1, I thought this would give him like a 30% turn meter boost. That'd be ridiculous. I'm pretty sure it only gives him a 10%, though I'm not 100% sure. Another thing is that this ability does not reduce the cooldown of his A3 when it's coming from an ally attack, a counter attack, or anything like that. So that's kind of sucks, but he'd be a little bit overpowered and ridiculous if that was the case. But it doesn't, from what I've noticed, doesn't reduce the cooldown, unfortunately, even if he does kill somebody. This passive paired with this mastery gives him so much turn meter that if you're using him in a fast team and the enemy does end up, whether it's a Hegemon or does end up taking a turn before you, Hurndig is going to go in front of your fast champion. It doesn't really matter. Like 200 speed, I literally had him at 129 speed, and he was going in front of my champions who had 207 speed because he was being hit just a few times. So it's a pretty drastic difference that it can make from having some speed on him or having no speed. So if you're going to bring him into the arena in a go second team, you need to make sure to build him with very, very low speed, unless, well, at least low enough so where your debuffers are going before him and the team's working out pretty smooth. Now, if you use him in a fast team, you literally just bring him in like any other nuke champion. So like my Ray, I would literally just put him in the same gear because he does the same role. Not a big deal like that, but just keep in mind, depending on how you're going to use him, you do have to gear him differently. Unlike most other champions, you can use them in the same or very similar gear if they're going second or going first when it's a DPS damage dealing champion, because they're typically not that fast anyways. Now, with that said, keeping his speed down may be difficult for a lot of people because a lot of times you do sell gear that doesn't have speed rolls on it anyways, right? Like getting his speed low for me was a little bit challenging, but not having to worry about speed opens up so much potential for tons of damage, okay? So for him, when I got him maxed out damage, he has like 5,900 attack, he has like 129 speed, 247, I think, crit damage, and 100% crit rate. It's very, very hard, especially under increased attack. So those are the kind of the two builds that you could use for Hurndig. When it comes to campaign, great champion. Dungeons, I'm pretty sure you can use him in literally every single dungeon in the game because he brings good debuff utility, well, great debuff utility, especially if you're getting those weakens from that A3 ability. Very good utility in Faction Wars. Very, very solid dwarf. I know a lot of people don't have those top tier legendary dwarves. Granted, Brogni being another fusion kind of does help that faction out quite a bit. But Faction Wars, Arena, this is my favorite spot to use him. I'll go ahead and swap him over to the gear that I was using before and show you guys a little bit more. But this is kind of the build that I think is going to appeal to 90% of players, okay? Where he's good attack, basically built like any other nuke champion. Good attack, well, any other attack-based nuke champion, that is. So high attack, good speed. This does Nightmare Campaign, good crit damage, decent accuracy, and the speed pretty good as well. This build works out well. Now, I didn't try to figure out the minimums. If anybody knows what his minimums are to work doing Nightmare Campaign farming, let me know. I did do 12.6, so make sure if you're doing it, you're doing 12.6 as well. You can try 12.3. I'll go ahead and try that real quick to see if he does anything at all. But when it comes to, is his books worth it? Yes. In short, yes, I think he's definitely worth booking. If you don't want to invest too much in him, don't worry about the A1 ability, but everything else, you definitely feel the difference, and it feels pretty good. So 12.3, the champions are strong affinity against magic champions, so that's why a lot of people don't farm this stage, I believe is a big reason. So obviously it's going to take much, much longer. He may be able to do it, but I kind of doubt it, to be honest. It does really help having his ability where he gets more turn meter whenever he's hit, because those times where he does get hit during the campaign, instead of getting hit by every enemy, he'll just get hit by like one, maybe two enemies, and then his turn meter will be boosted to the point where he'll just cut right in on them. So let's go ahead and jump in here, and I'll give you guys an example of what he looks like in the arena. Actually, let's go ahead and just show him with a speed team, okay? So I'll go ahead and jump in here and just show you that he can hit pretty hard, even if he's in a typical speed team, speed tune, so on and so forth. So we'll drop my Kymar, we'll drop this build. Now this Saris, I think, is maybe okay. I don't really know, actually, to be honest. I'm going to put Arbiter in here. Let's put Hurndig in the back. Lysandra, and then Ghostborn may be my best option, to be honest. 214, yeah, he'll work. So decreased defense, nuking, everything, we're good to go here. So let's go ahead and see how much damage he's dealing. If you're looking for a nuke champion, definitely the way to go. Very solid champion. My favorite build, though, for him currently is for a Ghost Second Arena team. Granted, you do need very specific champions. So we have decreased defense on everybody, increased attack on Hurndig. This team's going to be very, very squishy, but let's go ahead and use his A3. His A2 does do some serious damage as well, and good utility with the decreased defense. 90k basically on everybody. So he's hitting very, very hard. Most teams are not going to be able to stay alive against him. I literally went against a team earlier that was like filled of tanks. I had no debuffs, no even increased attack on him, and he worked him down. It took a while. I had Necrit on my team, keeping him alive. It did take a while, but he did work out perfectly fine. So if you guys want to see that video where I built him with just strictly attack gear, you can go ahead and click the link somewhere around here, maybe the end of this video. You can watch that. I don't want to drag this video on even longer. I kind of want to just do a summary of what I'm thinking about Hurndig now. A friendly build, I guess a kind of a budget friendly build. Now, granted, this is still in-game, but Nightmare campaign farming is in-game as well. This isn't necessarily the minimums you need for him. It's just something I threw together pretty quickly, and it seems to work out very well. I'll click on these pieces of gear if you guys want to see them right before I cut this video out, but let me know. Do you want to see videos in the future that are like a real time, hey, this is what this champion looks like unbooked, and this is what this champion looks like when they're fully booked? Because like I said, I tried to do that, but the video ended up taking 30 minutes. It was a lot of information that shouldn't have even been in there, so I ended up just cutting that out. Now, this video may be the same way, to be honest. I don't know, but let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Don't forget to leave a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.